Chapter 81, Close Combat. The appearance of the god of destruction was somewhat disheveled at this time, with several tears appearing on his robe. What infuriated him even more was that his own destructive thoughts had cracks in them. The two Asura blood swords just now finally injured him. Although the injury was not serious, in his heart, it was still a great shame. He couldn't understand why, in a situation where his side should have completely dominated. Why did the other side suddenly break through? What was going on with the Asura blood swords of the god of food? Tang San smiled as he looked at the god of destruction. Surprised, aren't you? I said that betting doesn't necessarily mean losing. Now, do you still think you can win for sure? The god of destruction coldly said, of course. Even if you control the god of lust and the god of gluttony, our side still has 6 first-level gods, which are far superior to you. And as long as we have free hands, it is not difficult to help the god of lust and the god of gluttony resolve the control. And what about you? You have already used the Asura blood sword twice. How much divine power do you have left to consume? The god of food's consumption is also considerable. After all, the god of food and the 9-colored goddess are only second-level gods. They can use special divine techniques to enhance themselves for a while, but their endurance is still limited in the end. Ultimately, on your side, the ones with real combat power are still you, Xiao Wu, and the god of emotion. Tang San was slightly stunned. You seem to be different from before. The god of destruction nodded coldly, more calm than before, right? Thanks to Little Green. Her love has calmed down my desire for power and my crazy destructive intent. Otherwise, maybe I would really have fallen for your trick. You do have the ability to win by surprise, but unfortunately, this trick can only be used once, and you won't be able to use it again. You hope to see us in chaos so that you can take advantage of the situation and fish in troubled waters. It's even possible to really defeat us. Unfortunately, I won't give you that chance. You're thinking too much. Let's do it. Don't waste time trying to restore divine power. As he spoke, the god of destruction raised his destruction scepter again. This time, he was no longer defensively passive. In the sky, clusters of purple black lightning balls began to rapidly condense and slowly take shape, faintly enveloping Tang San's side. The gods who were watching from afar would naturally hear the exchange between the two supreme gods. Yes. On the surface, Tang San's side did have the upper hand in the previous battle, but in terms of overall strength, the two sides were still far apart. The god of destruction was right. Winning by surprise could only happen once. Tang San sighed and said, see, this is much better. You, who can stay calm, are the strongest, but it makes me even more eager to fight. Do you really think you have the absolute upper hand? No, you are wrong. We are now so close to each other that the advantages of the team cannot be fully utilized. Let's compete in close combat. I wonder if you are good at this. Let's do it. With a loud shout, Tang San's golden light flashed, and it was the god of emotions who first launched the attack. His body disappeared directly into thin air and reappeared right next to the god of envy. He didn't directly attack the god of envy, but radiated a bright light from his body. Above his head, a huge vertical eye appeared, and strangely, at the same time that the eye appeared, a small black hammer, as black as ink, flew out from behind the god of emotions and hit the vertical eye directly. In an instant, the vertical eye completely turned into a noble purple golden color, and then countless purple golden small hammers burst out from within the vertical eye, flying in all directions and hitting all the original sin gods around. The first to be hit was the closest, the god of envy. A dark pink halo suddenly appeared behind the god of envy's head. She pointed her finger and said in a low voice, envy is the original sin. Immediately, a dark pink light curtain appeared in front of her, and in the center of the light curtain, an endless dark pink vortex was rotating. Inside the vortex, there were countless envious faces, and the weird soul fluctuations shook off each of the purple golden small hammers that came flying towards her. In the meantime, the purple gold color remained strong. The envy god's envy light screen gradually showed cracks under its bombardment and quickly spread, not only affecting the envy god but also nearby gods of gluttony, pride, and sloth. All 4 original sin gods were covered by those purple gold small hammers, which were surprisingly powerful. It was not just a simple divine power attack, but came from the world of divine souls, directly impacting the god's consciousness and divine souls, with extremely powerful destructive power. Once the divine consciousness was damaged, it was difficult to heal. Therefore, the 4 original sin gods did not dare to be negligent, and each used their own unique skills to resist the attacks from the god of emotions. Chapter 82, Soulstorm. If it was just the emotion god alone, he naturally wouldn't have the ability to control all 4 original sin gods at the same time. However, he was not fighting alone. After donning the purple gold battle armor transformed by the butterfly god, he emitted an incredibly strong aura, and his halo behind his head once again turned into 8 rings. Therefore, in terms of personal cultivation, he has already surpassed the 7 original sin gods and is in existence between a first-level god and a supreme god. The divine technique he is currently displaying is also a fusion of his and the butterfly god's souls. Its name is True Words in the Void, Mind Storm. The terrifying Mind Storm directly interrogates the mind. Based on the emotion god's huge spiritual power, one Mind Storm was able to temporarily control at least 4 original sin gods, which is already the ultimate achievement of the emotion god. At the moment he launched his attack, Tang San, Xiao Wu, and the ghostly white tiger also moved at the same time. Tang San directly pounced on the god of destruction. Xiao Wu confronted the god of ruin, and the ghostly white tiger pounced on the god of wrath. The god of destruction remained completely calm. On the surface, it seemed that their side was not in a good position, but as he had just said, in terms of strength, the gods on Tang San's side would not compare to them at all. This was a fundamental difference in strength between the two sides. This huge gap, as long as they could hold steady, would completely reveal the consumption of Tang San's godly power, and the battle would immediately tilt, or even directly end. The Asura sword descended vertically and instantly arrived in front of the god of destruction. The god of destruction waved his destruction scepter and a layer of purple light shone, deflecting the Asura sword. The powerful intent of destruction swept towards Tang San like a tsunami. Suddenly, around Tang San's body, there appeared blue rays of light bursting outwards like giant trees. These rays of blue light collided with the intent of destruction, creating a strange scene. Under the influence of the intent of destruction, the giant trees quickly shattered into nothingness. However, soon after, they grew back from the ground, towering into the sky like massive trees. Then, under the influence of the intent of destruction, they were destroyed again and the cycle continued endlessly. In this cycle, the divine power of both sides was being consumed at an astonishing rate. What Tang San was using now was one of his domain class divine techniques called myriad manifestations of the forest of spirits. The gods of slaughter who came from the human world to the divine realm were very rich in their means of fighting, unlike the native gods of the divine realm who were more singular in their abilities. Although this did not necessarily mean that their combat power was stronger, at least they could show much more variability in combat. The god of emotions was like this, and so was Tang San. As the myriad manifestations of the forest of spirits collided with the intent of destruction, Tang San also approached the god of destruction. The two supreme gods confronted each other at this close distance. The collision between the Asura sword and the destruction scepter caused a clash of red and purple, slaughter and destruction, which clashed and changed the color of the world. The sky turned purple, the earth turned blood red, and then the earth turned purple and the sky turned blood red. The destruction god said coldly, "You cannot succeed." Tang San said calmly, "Until now, you are still so stubborn. Do you think I would fight a battle with no chance of winning? Do you think I would propose this if it was a guaranteed loss?" The destruction god sneered, "Talking like this won't affect my battle intent at all. Let's let our actions speak for themselves. The current situation on the field is quite simple. On Xiao Wu's side, the battle with the god of destruction is fierce and intense. It's difficult to determine a winner between them for the moment. On the other side, the god of war and the god of speed are barely holding off the god of wrath with their powerful fusion technique. The ghostly white tiger, at this point, the only ones left on the field are the food god, who has been greatly depleted, and the 9-colored goddess, who is currently boosting everyone's power. Although these two have given the god of destruction a great shock today, their divine power is obviously decreasing at an alarming rate. Although the situation on the field is currently at a standstill, everyone knows that as soon as there is a change in any one aspect, it will immediately affect the entire situation. First of all, with the god of emotion, the time he can maintain his divine technique is limited. Once this time is up, what can he do to restrict the 4 original sin gods around him? If one of the 4 original sin gods becomes available, the situation on the field will instantly reverse. This is precisely why the god of destruction actually has great confidence in his heart. However, soon his expression turned gloomy again, because another unexpected event has occurred. While everyone believed that the god of emotion had reached his limit, he forcefully suppressed the 4 original sin gods with his mind storm. Suddenly, a vertical eye appeared behind him. Unlike the previous vertical eye that was full of nobility and a sense of destiny, this vertical eye was no longer slender but round. Moreover, the pupils were filled with endless evil. In just a moment, the pupil turned blood red. Then, a powerful blood red beam of light shot out and headed straight for the greed god on the other side. Chapter 83. The sigh of the goddess of ice and snow. The greed god was fully exerting himself to resist the mind storm, so even if he wanted to dodge, it was impossible. When the blood red beam of light hit him, he was surprised to find that he was so familiar with this feeling. Destruction. The blood red light was clearly filled with a sense of destruction. This sense of destruction was very similar to the destruction intent of the god of destruction, but it was much weaker. Even so, this was a technique released by a level 1 god. Under the impact, the greed god was directly blasted away. In the next moment, the purple gold armor on the god of emotion's body suddenly turned into ice blue, and behind him, a figure in ice blue quietly emerged. As the ice blue figure appeared, the water god in the distance couldn't help but be slightly stunned, because the ice blue figure looked 6 or 7 points similar to her. The emotion god flashed his body, as if breaking through the void, and appeared in front of the greed god in the next instant. At this time, his mental storm had ended, and the suppression of the other 3 original sin gods had also collapsed. However, if the 3 original sin gods wanted to rescue the greed god, it was definitely too late. Puff. With a light palm, the emotion god printed it in front of the greed god. The greed god's reaction was still very fast. Although he suffered a lot from the previous light of destruction, he first raised his palm and spread the taste of greed. A strong dark golden light burst outwards, trying to resist the attack of the emotion god. The purple and golden light flashed in the eyes of the emotion god and disappeared. The greed god only felt that his head was hit hard by a heavy hammer. He also saw that the purple and golden light was not 2 beams released from the emotion god's eyes, but 3, and a vertical eye cracked on the emotion god's forehead. His originally released strong dark golden light suddenly dimmed a lot. The emotion god's right palm then printed on his palm. Suddenly, the greed god, who was the overall strongest among the 7 original sin gods, turned into an ice sculpture in the air and was completely frozen. At the moment before his body was frozen, he had only one thought in his mind: how many kinds of divine skills does this hateful emotion god have? And they are all different. That's right. From the moment they started fighting until now, the emotion god has already used multiple divine techniques. The blood red eyes come from the ability he possessed since his time in the Douluo continent. The destruction light of the tyrant's domineering evil eye. The next technique he used was his strongest ultimate ice divine technique, the sigh of the ice and snow goddess. While using the sigh of the ice and snow goddess, he also employed his powerful spiritual abilities to launch a soul impact. These powerful divine techniques, combined with the previous mental storm suppression, quickly overwhelmed the greed god, whose cultivation was already inferior to that of the emotion god. He deserved to lose because there was a significant gap in strength between them. The emotion god had already used all of his abilities during this series of attacks. With a flash of blue light, the frozen greed god disappeared. Even though the 2 sides were in opposing positions, the divine oath prohibited them from killing each other easily, so the emotion god simply took the imprisoned greed god away. The side of the god of destruction had finally managed to truly suppress one of the 7 original sin gods, reducing their strength by an 1/8. However, while the emotion god was suppressing the greed god, he himself fell into a crisis. The 3 other original sin gods who had also been suppressed by him now rushed towards him at full speed. The gods of envy, pride, and sloth each unleashed their divine powers and transformed into a prison, directly suppressing his body. As long as the emotion god was suppressed, the greed god would naturally be released. It was also equivalent to dissolving Tang San's left and right arms, but at the same moment they pounced on him, the emotion god's body unexpectedly became ethereal. Immediately after, he shook his body and disappeared into thin air. The 3 major original sin gods were all stunned. Was this an illusion? Previously, the emotion god had already used an illusion once, deceiving almost all of the gods present. Even the destruction god was not an exception. And now, he had once again used an illusion to escape from the hands of the 3 major first-tier gods. The envy god's face was filled with insane envy, the pride god's disdain froze, and the originally sloth eyes of the sloth god became serious. The strength of the emotion god had already exceeded their previous expectations. In fact, if it was just the emotion god alone, even with the addition of the butterfly god's power, they could not reach this level. But don't forget, their entire team also had the presence of the food god and the 9-colored goddess. Chapter 84. Control. The amplification of the 9-colored goddess has an effect on any teammate, including the emotion god. Moreover, the emotion god also comes from the Douluo continent and adapts quickly to her amplification. With the 8 rings radiant will as a baseline, coupled with her amplification, although it still can't reach the level of the supreme god, it has become the top-ranked god under the supreme god. That is why she was able to control the 4 great original sin gods in a short time and suppress one of them through an explosion. Such strength is enough to shock everyone. However, on the other side, the destruction god confronting Tang San was not affected by this and seemed to be completely unaware of everything. In his mind, the situation had not yet gotten out of control. No matter how strong the emotion god is, it is impossible to fight against 4 opponents alone. In the previous battle, he had already consumed too much of his divine power. His power should be almost depleted, and the time he had combined with the butterfly god should also be coming to an end. As expected, after leaving the battle, the emotion god immediately fled and flew towards the direction of the food god. The food god also flew towards him. At this moment, the sloth god, the envy god, and the pride god did not all chase after him. The pride god and the sloth god chased after the emotion god, while the envy god flashed and pounced towards the phoenix god. Not only the god of destruction believed that they had the overall advantage in strength, but the 7 deadly sin gods also felt the same way. Moreover, with their strength, they were actually suppressed by these only 2nd-level deities, which made them feel quite frustrated. The god of envy had already figured it out. As long as they took down the phoenix god, they could free up 2 of their own deadly sin gods. The lust god and the gluttony god were also very powerful. Once they were rescued and combined their powers, they could solve the entire battle. Seeing the god of envy rushing towards the phoenix god, the god of destruction who was facing off against Tang San also showed a hint of excitement in his eyes. The god of destruction had already felt that Tang San's Asura sword intent was beginning to weaken, which was a sign that his divine power was starting to decline, and his time of being suppressed was about to end. And once he counterattacked, everything would be over. The goddess of life sighed and slowly closed her eyes as she watched the distant battle. Wrong Nyabing held Tang Walin, who had just been born, and also couldn't help but let out a long sigh, shaking his head. The 7 elemental gods frowned deeply. Is it ending? All the gods present had almost seen the outcome of this battle. Everything was already without any suspense. At this moment, suddenly, someone moved. It was Xiao Wu, who was attached to the position of the god of the sea. Xiao Wu's figure flickered, and she looked like a blue lightning bolt as she rushed towards the god of envy. The god of ruin, who was originally fighting against Xiao Wu, was clearly inferior to her in terms of speed. He hurriedly chased after her but fell half a step behind and failed to stop her sudden attack. The god of envy naturally noticed Xiao Wu's sudden action and felt that she was coming towards him. But what of it? Wasn't this also self-destruction? The place where Xiao Wu and the god of ruin had previously fought was not far from the phoenix god and the 2 original sin gods he was holding back. Xiao Wu occasionally used her unpredictable moves to continue to control the god of lust and the god of gluttony. Otherwise, with only the power of the phoenix god, it would not be enough. Xiao Wu controlled the power of the sea god, which was stronger than the god of ruin. However, with her divided attention, the god of ruin was able to fight her to a draw. At this moment, the arrival of the god of envy was like the final straw that broke the camel's back. The balance was about to be broken. The god of envy did not fly towards the phoenix god because she could feel that Xiao Wu's speed was very fast and she could intercept her before she attacked the phoenix god. So she stopped directly and turned around. The deep pink color that belonged to the god of envy rose up and transformed into a ferocious and resentful face of envy, shrouding Xiao Wu, the sea god. Although her battle experience was not as rich as the gods who came from the human world, she was still a first-level god after all. She still had some battle experience. The goddess of envy was also skilled in control, and her goal was simple: to flank the god of ruin with her. Compared to subduing the phoenix god, suppressing Xiao Wu was even more meaningful. Not to mention the sea god's divine power she wielded. Just the fact that she was Tang San's wife was enough to to represent a great significance. You see, when the god of destruction first took action, it was because he had captured Xiao Wu, which made Tang San surrender. Now, as long as she and the god of ruin worked together to capture Xiao Wu again, the battle would be over. However, Xiao Wu's strength was not as powerful as that of the god of emotions, which was amplified by the butterfly god. Facing the goddess of envy's face of envy, Xiao Wu's pretty face showed a determined expression. She raised the golden trident in her hand, and golden light turned into smoke and clouds, heading towards the goddess of envy's face of envy. It was the sea god's golden trident ultimate skill, 1,000-year empty sky of white clouds. Chapter 85, Suppression. The collision of their divine powers in the air immediately caused a tremendous upheaval in the world. In terms of cultivation, there was still a gap between the envy god and the sea god, but since the sea god was being controlled by Xiao Wu, she couldn't exert all her power. However, don't forget that Xiao Wu had the golden trident in her hands. Although the quality of the golden trident was not as good as the Asura sword, after being tempered by Tang San for many years, it had already surpassed its original limits. Therefore, when the envy god collided with the 1,000-year empty sky of white clouds, a deep pink color intertwined with golden colors, and the deep pink gradually dissipated as the golden light and mist spread all around. The goddess of envy clenched her teeth. She knew that at this moment, she could not back down. Once she did, it would likely produce variables. She took a deep breath, and a strong feeling of envy appeared on her face. Her eyes completely turned into a deep pink color, and two beams of deep pink light suddenly shot out from her eyes, directly aimed at Xiao Wu's eyes. Envy light. Being hit by the light of envy, whether a god or a human, it would trigger the endless original sin of envy in their hearts. As long as they had ever felt envy, it would be brought forth and temporarily lose themselves. Every original sin god has a similar ability, which is also their strongest ability. The god of envy completely disregarded herself and unleashed the light of envy, which would consume her source power and leave her unable to move or take any other action. If her opponent acted quickly enough, they could easily harm her. Was Xiao Wu fast enough? As it turns out, she was. A golden halo shot out from the watery blade of the golden trident and wrapped around the god of envy, binding her tightly. It was the sea god's ultimate skill, endless waves. At the same time, Xiao Wu was hit by the light of envy, and her delicate body trembled. Her entire body was covered in a layer of pink. The god of envy could clearly see that although Xiao Wu was covered in pink, her eyes were still clear. She couldn't help but secretly admire her, thinking that she was truly worthy of being Tang San's wife. Xiao Wu had no envy in her heart, showing how pure her heart was. However, the god of envy had already predicted this. Even if there was no envy, the body would still be tested by the sin of envy and become stiff for a second, and 1 second was enough for the divine battle. Behind Xiao Wu, the god of ruin wielding a pair of giant hammers had arrived, raising the hammers high and smashing them down with a loud bang. The god of envy's goal was achieved. She and Xiao Wu were in a stalemate, and this was the time for her to act. Although Xiao Wu's individual strength was superior to hers and the god of ruins, the difference was not significant. In this situation, as long as the god of ruin could fully exert his strength, he could immediately suppress her. The battle would be over. The goddess of life furrowed her brows and instantly opened her eyes again. The god of ruin was the closest subordinate of the god of destruction and also came from the mortal world. Since arriving in the divine realm, he has devoted himself to the god of destruction and became his right-hand man. This god of ruin had immense power and was also known as the god of great strength. The reason why the god of destruction valued him was because of his steady temperament and great wisdom. Compared to the 7 major gods of sin, he was far less extreme, and his strength was fully displayed in battle, with destructive power. If his giant hammer were to strike Xiao Wu, she would be in great danger. The goddess of life's hand glowed with a green light, and she was ready to act. Once Xiao Wu's life was threatened, she would immediately intervene and save Xiao Wu's life no matter what. On the other side, the gaze of the god of destruction suddenly froze, and he said in a deep voice, Tang San, aren't you going to admit defeat yet? At this moment, Tang San was facing the direction of Xiao Wu and the others, which was deliberately arranged by the god of destruction to control the situation of the battle. He wanted to make Tang San see that Xiao Wu was being threatened. Moreover, their battle among the supreme gods was taking place while Tang San's divine power was continuously decreasing. Seeing that scene could very likely trigger Tang San's desire to fight and end this battle. However, the god of destruction was disappointed. He didn't see any trace of panic on Tang San's face. Instead, he saw a faint smile. That smile was full of confidence and the feeling of having everything under control. The god of destruction's heart suddenly sank, and the ominous premonition that had appeared before erupted with several times its previous intensity. This is bad. Yes, it's really bad. The hammer of the god of destruction was about to fall on Xiao Wu. However, suddenly, his body slid forward in the air and instantly moved out of range of Xiao Wu's head, even flying over the head of the god of envy. He landed directly behind their battlefield. The god of envy had already been very close to the phoenix god, so when the god of destruction flew past her body, he naturally ended up on the side of the phoenix god. The god of envy cursed in her heart. What an idiot. Why didn't he deal with Xiao Wu first? It would have a bigger impact on the battle. He's such a fool. A complete fool. However, in the next instant, she suddenly shook as a huge force came from behind her. The god of envy felt as if her entire divine power had been scattered and her eyes were filled with an incredulous look. Deep pink light spewed from all 7 of her orifices. Her delicate body shook in the air, and she was swallowed by a black light. The god of envy was suppressed. Chapter 86. Impossible. The god of envy was actually suppressed. Exclamations seemed to echo throughout the entire divine realm in this instant. Who could have thought that in a situation where victory and defeat had already been determined, such a strange scene would occur, as if everything had changed, and the cause of this earth-shattering reversal was just one god. Yes, the god of ruin. With the giant hammer retracted, the god of ruin, who was shrouded in silver armor, seemed as if nothing had happened. His head was also covered by the armor, so no one could see his expression at the moment. In the moment when he leapt over the god of envy's head, he smashed his hammer on her back. Being controlled by the turbulence of chaos, the god of envy couldn't resist and was directly suppressed by the god of ruin after her divine power was dispersed. Until the moment when she was suppressed, the god of envy didn't understand what had happened. Unfortunately, she didn't see the faint smile on Xiao Wu's pretty face as the deep pink on her body was dissipating. Yes, Xiao Wu knew all of this and had completely anticipated it. The god of envy thought that they could determine the outcome of the battle by controlling each other, but Xiao Wu also had this idea in mind. This was something the god of envy didn't know. Similarly controlled, neither she nor Xiao Wu could resist the god of ruin's attack if it landed on either of them. And the god of ruin, who had just performed his shocking reversal, now seemed completely ordinary, shouting to the sky, hate without limit, hate without end. In his hands, the 2 giant hammers lit up with different colors, one gleaming gold, the other bright silver. Both hammers struck out simultaneously, targeting the god of gluttony and the god of lust, who was still under the control of the phoenix god. Meanwhile, after a brief moment of stiffness, Xiao Wu was able to move again. She lifted the trident of the sea god once more and used the same undying storm to ensnare the 2 controlled gods. Although the god of destruction couldn't see what was happening, with his powerful divine consciousness, he could naturally detect everything that was going on. No. Impossible. The god of destruction roared furiously, unable to believe that his most trusted subordinate had betrayed him at such a crucial moment. It was simply unacceptable to him. However, the fact had already happened, and it was so blatant that he couldn't help but believe it. Boom, boom. With 2 muffled sounds, both the god of lust and the god of gluttony wilted under the god of ruin's hammer and was suppressed by him. The phoenix god was also released as a result. The battle on this side was over. At this point, among the 8 first-level gods under the god of destruction, the god of emotion suppressed the god of greed, the god of ruin suppressed the gods of lust, gluttony, and envy. In addition to his own sudden betrayal, 5 of the 8 first-level gods were gone. Only 3 gods remain. Among them, the god of wrath and the netherworld white tiger are struggling, gradually gaining the upper hand, while the other 2, the god of pride and the god of sloth, have already caught up with the god of emotions not far behind. However, the situation on the field has already undergone an astonishing reversal, and the gap between the 2 sides has been completely narrowed. Is there still a chance? The god of destruction tells himself. Yes, of course, there is still a chance. Tang San, don't think you've won. The god of destruction roared, sweeping his destructive scepter and engaging in a fierce clash with the Asura sword. Tang San's divine power seemed to have been depleted too much in the previous Asura blood sword, and under the collision, his body flew backward, creating some distance between him and the god of destruction. The scepter of destruction in the hands of the god of destruction was held high. In that moment, he let go of all the shock, amazement, and anger in his heart. His blood-red eyes gradually turned to deep purple. A huge ball of destruction enveloped his body. Tang San's face also became serious. Just like how the Asura god had the powerful divine skill Asura blood sword, the god of destruction also had his own powerful divine skill, destruction of heaven and earth. This was what the god of destruction was about to use. After all, the god of destruction was a supreme god. Although the situation was reversed in an instant, he still made an accurate judgment at the first time. Although 5 of his underlings, the first-level gods, had already been taken down by the opponent situation was also not optimistic. The god of emotions and the butterfly god's fusion technique should be ending soon. The god of emotions had already experienced a series of battles here today, and the consumption was enormous. The food god and the nine-colored goddess had also consumed a lot of energy. How easy would it be for them to recover? On the other side with the ghost shadow white tiger, the god of wrath had the upper hand. As long as their side could quickly take down the emotion god and his wife, as well as the food god and the nine-colored goddess, and then face the sea god, the god of destruction, and the phoenix god again, even if they couldn't defeat them, at least they could maintain a stalemate. Therefore, the ultimate outcome of this battle still depended on the battle between himself and Tang San. If Tang San hadn't used the Asura blood sword twice in the previous battles, perhaps there would still be a chance to win. But now, his divine power had been greatly consumed. As long as he could defeat Tang San as soon as possible, the situation would still be under his control. Chapter 87. Just kidding. This was the judgment made by the god of destruction in an instant. He was no longer willing to think about why the god of ruin had betrayed them. Now, obtaining the final victory in the battle was the most important thing. Therefore, at this moment, he launched his most powerful attack against Tang San, the destruction of heaven and earth. The sky turned purple, and the earth became dark. The terrifying idea of destruction turned the world of the gods into a forest of purple lightning in an instant. The lightning forest seemed to have no attacking power, but every god present felt an inexplicable sense of despair and the desire to destroy everything. Their sense of destruction was immediately stripped away from their hearts by the lightning forest and merged toward the direction of the god of destruction. Destruction of heaven and earth, the fundamental technique of the god of destruction. He could no longer wait any longer. He had to defeat Tang San at this moment. At this time, the gods of pride and sloth had already come to the vicinity of the emotion god. The emotion god and the food god stood side by side, with no expression of fear on their faces, as if they had not consumed so much divine power before. However, at this moment, the nine-colored goddess rose up from behind them once again and turned into the nine treasure-glazed pagoda. However, this time she didn't fall onto the palm of the food god, instead floating towards Tang San not far away. The pride god nodded coldly, showing a proud look on his face. He pointed his right hand, and a blue light shot towards the nine treasure-glazed pale tower, trying to stop its flight. But at that moment, the emotion god took action. The fusion skill between him and the butterfly god had not ended yet. Moreover, at that instant, the divine power aura emanating from him suddenly skyrocketed. The pride god and the sloth god were both shocked because they found that the divine power fluctuations bursting out from the emotion god at this moment were not weaker than when he controlled the four original sin gods at the same time before. This is impossible. Is it possible that this guy's divine power is infinite? This is simply impossible. However, the emotion god proved to them with his actions that miracles seemed to never end on him. He pointed forward with his right hand and an icy blue light shot out, blocking the divine light emitted by the pride god. Moreover, the emotion god's aura suddenly increased, and the extremely cold aura enveloped the two original sin gods. Absolute Zero. It's a soul skill that controls the range of ultra-low temperatures. At this moment, even the food god moved. A breathtaking blood light rose up and he disappeared into it. The Asura blood sword. The pride god and the sloth god almost exclaimed at the same time. In their voices, there was fear. That was the Asura blood sword. Without the protection of the god of destruction, how could they withstand the strongest single attack in the entire divine realm? At that moment, the first reaction of the two original sin gods was to quickly fuse together and release their respective divine powers to the limit. The Asura blood sword. How could the food god release the Asura blood sword again? This is impossible. From afar, when the goddess of life witnessed this scene, her pretty face trembled slightly. She shook her head helplessly. Just kidding. The food god's voice rang out with a slight chuckle, and the red light flickered for just a moment before returning to normal. Of course, he couldn't possibly use the Asura blood sword again. After all, he was just a second level divine. Even if there were special means to simulate the Asura blood sword in battle, there wouldn't be enough divine power to support it, even with the nine-colored goddess and his own amplification. The previous expenditure could not be compensated for. But now, with the help of the emotion god, he used the emotion god's simulated divine technique, combined with the faint aura of the Asura blood sword that he released, to intimidate the two original sin gods. During this short period of time, the nine treasure-glazed pagoda had already flown out and was not far behind Tang San. The glazed pagoda has 9 floors, and its godly light protects us for 9 days. Ning Zhongzhong's beautiful voice echoed in the air. As the top level of the nine treasure-glazed pagoda, a brilliant golden light shot out. As the golden light shot out, the nine treasure-glazed pagoda completely turned into a radiant gold color. Around the tower, it seemed as if countless celestial music was playing, incredibly beautiful. Even in this world full of destructive lightning, it was still so enchanting and eye-catching. The golden light landed steadily on Tang San's body, completely turning his red light of Asura god into gold. And in the next instant, Tang San's body was engulfed by the terrifying doomsday of the god of destruction. The doomsday was a huge black thunderball, with only a layer of blue-purple on the edge of the thunderball. The destructive storm contained within it can be imagined. The terrifying idea of destruction had reached its extreme. The god of destruction, who had unleashed the storm of destruction, had dimmed eyes, but at the same time, there was a layer of fanaticism in them. Chapter 88. Are you curious? At this moment, the nine treasure-glazed tile pagoda became strange. The golden tower body slowly dimmed, starting from the top layer, then went extinct, and then the second layer dimmed and went extinct, layer by layer. The breath of the nine treasure-glazed tile pagoda was also constantly weakening. On the other side, the battle was not over yet. The pride and sloth gods, who felt they were deceived, were furious. Their divine power erupted once again. They didn't even want to deal with the god of emotions anymore, and only wanted to take down the food god with his stubble and blue peach blossom eyes. This guy was really too despicable, making them waste the most crucial opportunity. The food god smirked, turned his body, and hid behind the god of emotions. At this moment, the god of emotions' eyes revealed a vast and profound color. His right hand slowly lifted in front of him, with the index and middle fingers holding a small and delicate-looking knife. The knife emitted a faint blue light, and on its handle, there was a lifelike carving of a ghost's head, which looked somewhat eerie. However, when the pride god and the sloth god noticed this small knife, they were shocked to find their own divine souls trembling because of such a small knife. This tremor came from their hearts, and it was rooted in their instincts for survival. This meant that the small knife could truly harm them. It could even end their lives. They were divine beings, and no matter how close their relationship with the god of destruction was, their own lives were more important than anything else. The god who was originally prepared to attack the god of food suddenly withdrew his divine power and turned his serious gaze towards the god of emotions. A powerful divine technique is most powerful at the moment before it is used. Once it is used, it may fall short because the outcome has already been determined. The god of emotions held a small knife in his hand, which could be used at any moment, but he remained motionless. However, his divine power continued to rise, and the purple golden aura around him even turned into wisps of smoke, continuously pouring into the small knife. Even the 8 rings of light behind his head began to disintegrate one by one and merged into the small knife in his hand. The gods of pride and sloth understood that they should have stopped him before he used this knife or provoked him to use it. Otherwise, if he continued to gather power, the power of this knife would be earth-shattering. Although they thought this way in their minds, they couldn't put it into action at all, because whoever attacked the god of emotions would have to bear the power of this knife and risk their own lives. Who would dare to do that? The god of emotions seemed to have noticed this, so the small knife in his hand remained unused. The halo behind his head continued to disintegrate. The 7 different emotions were continuously infused into the small knife during this process, enhancing its aura. What kind of ability is this? The gods of pride and sloth finally understood why the god of destruction said that the future god of emotions could potentially become the supreme god. Aren't you curious why he still has so much divine power? The god of food peeked out from behind the god of emotions' shoulder and said with a sly smile. Pride god and sloth god stiffened. Of course, they wouldn't ask out loud, but the doubt in their hearts was overwhelming. Curious why he still has so much divine power, right? Food god popped out from behind the emotion god's shoulder and said with a smirk. Well, let me be a good person and tell you. Look, what's this? As he spoke, he flicked his wrist and a strange sausage appeared in his hand. The sausage was red and greasy, with oil dripping off it, making it look very tempting. Do you know what my nickname was when I was still in the Douluo continent? My nickname was Uncle Big Sausage, and I made a living with this sausage. This one is called the Recovery Big Sausage. Eating it can restore your physical and divine energy. Of course, this is the weakest one among all my sausages. They eat the high quality ones, naturally. For example, he just ate more than half of my diamond market sausage. This thing can increase his divine power by 50%, slowly but surely. The effect is really good. Of course, there are some others he ate, but I won't tell you. For example, the Beyond Limitation green sausage, which can make him unleash all his potential, or the sturdy golden fly sausage, which can increase his attack power by 50% in one attack. I won't tell you that, yo. As he spoke, his smile became even more sly. That's right, the food god had no attack power power and no combat ability, just like the nine-colored goddess. However, there was one thing he had in common with the nine-colored goddess, and that was his super strong amplification ability. At first glance, the nine-colored goddess's amplification seemed simple, direct, and tremendously effective. However, in reality, the food god's amplification ability was no worse than hers, and the direction of his amplification was somewhat different. Chapter 89, Decisive Victory. When the food god was in Douluo Continent, he was known as Food God Douluo. His ability was embodied in the sausages he created. Later, he was also revered as the #1 food type martial soulmaster in Douluo Continent, so his abilities can be imagined. After coming to the divine realm, there were not many opportunities for conflicts. As he and the nine-colored goddess were not good at fighting, they naturally did not attract much attention from the gods. However, as individuals who were able to cultivate into gods from the mortal realm and reach the divine realm as second-level gods, how could they not have some powerful abilities of their own? While the nine-colored goddess was continuously demonstrating her strength, the food god was actually an important member of the whole team. Just now, when the gods of destruction and original sin saw Tang San and others chewing on something, it was the sausages made by the food god. Different sausages have different effects. For example, the food god has only one type of sausage that can temporarily give him combat power. That is the duplication mirror sausage, which has an excellent effect. It allows him to copy a divine skill for his own use. Why did Tang San use the Asura blood sword? Such a powerful technique. Right from the start, even though he knew it would consume a huge amount of his own energy. Besides breaking through the opponent's defense, the most important reason was to allow the food god to replicate it later on. That's why there was the Asura blood sword duet later on. Of course, the food god's power came from that one strike, which he was only able to unleash after consuming the tough golden fly sausage, excitement pink sausage, half diamond sausage, and the surpassing the limit dark green sausage, and even then it still depleted his own source power. However, he was not good at fighting in the first place. After that strike, he didn't need to launch any more attacks and could just focus on making sausages in the back. His abilities complemented those of the nine-colored goddess, and as a married couple, they mutually amplified each other's powers, greatly increasing his speed in making sausages. However, it still takes time to create high-level sausages, so his most powerful sausages are mainly provided to Tang San and Emotion God. This is also why the original sin gods felt that these two were so powerful. After listening to the food god's explanation, the expressions of the pride god and the sloth god became even more fascinating. Moreover, a thought suddenly arose in their hearts. Since the Emotion god ate these sausages and could maintain his combat power for so long, what about Tang San? That supreme god, sea god, and Asura god Tang San? Without a doubt, he also ate them. He ate the same sausages, and with the amplification of the nine-colored goddess, wouldn't his combat power be astonishing? Yes. As they watched, the golden light on the final level of the nine treasure glazed tile tower was also about to extinguish in the wind and rain. Suddenly, the huge black ball of light that had formed with the power to destroy the world and create a new one suddenly changed. A crack suddenly appeared on the surface of the ball of destruction, and it was a blood red sword blade. Immediately, the golden light inside the ball of destruction surged, and a figure suddenly rushed out. In midair, a blood red light burst out, and a huge sword appeared horizontally, turning into a shocking blood sword, slashing towards the god of destruction. The god of destruction originally thought that even if he couldn't defeat Tang San with this attack, at least he could consume a significant amount of his power, thus laying the foundation for victory. However, when the Asura blood sword appeared again, his eyes finally revealed a look of disbelief. He clearly felt that the divine power contained in this sword was no less inferior to the first time Tang San used the Asura blood sword. What kind of power was this? He could actually unleash the Asura blood sword 3 times. Even the Asura god of that year would see a gradual decrease in power after 3 consecutive uses. The god of destruction did not hear the words of the food god, so until now, he still did not understand why Tang San had become so powerful. The scepter of destruction was lifted again, and the purple-black destruction power condensed into a huge blade on the top of the scepter, lifting it into the air. In the distance, the body of the goddess of life trembled slightly, wanting to fly forward but ultimately held back. Because she believed in Tang San, even if he won, he wouldn't really kill the god of destruction. Clang! The sound of metal collision appeared at the moment of the collision between the two sides. The god of destruction shook violently all over, and huge golden cracks appeared in the purple-black clouds in the sky. The black earth also shattered, as if countless wisps of gas rose from the ground. The huge Asura blood sword transformed back into Tang San's body, and he held it with both hands, pressing it against the destruction scepter. Destruction god looked at him with a fierce expression in his eyes. The blade of the destruction scepter had already begun to disintegrate, and he was using the scepter itself to block the Asura sword. However, the blade of the Asura sword had already cut into the destruction scepter for several inches, and it was about to cut into it by 1/3. This artifact, the destruction scepter, was actually damaged. This showed that the destruction god had been completely suppressed by Tang San. No, I won't lose. Destruction god suddenly roared to the sky. Immediately, there was a rising purple black mist around his body. Chapter 90, Flying Dagger. No, it's not allowed, cried the life goddess, flying towards the direction of the god of destruction. But there was someone even faster than her. A dim blue light, as if slicing through the air in an instant, appeared at the forehead of the god of destruction in the next moment. The light vanished in a flash, and the cloak that had been worn on top of the god of destruction's head was finally lifted and split in two. A dim blue small knife was pinned to his forehead. The purple black light that had just risen suddenly returned to calm. The body of the god of destruction also shook violently. The destruction scepter in his hand slowly fell down. At the same time, Tang San's Asura blood sword was also retracted. The revealed destruction god was a man who appeared to be in his 30s. He had short dark red hair that stood upright like steel needles, and he was extremely handsome, no less than Tang San. However, his complexion was somewhat pale. In his eyes, there were still red lights flashing, but at this moment, within those red lights, there seemed to be countless flowing lights and changes. His body was also stiff, as if completely frozen, motionless. It was only then that Tang San began to gasp, breathing heavily. With his hands holding the Asura sword, his handsome face showed a sense of relief. Both being supreme gods, it was not easy for him to defeat the destruction god. Why did he see the fear in the life goddess's eyes when she saw the purple light just now? The reason was simple. In that instant, the destruction god was clearly about to follow the path of the emotion god and ignite his divine flame. He was a supreme god, and once he ignited the divine flame, the destructive power would be so strong that the current god's realm, which had already weakened due to the thinning of spiritual power, would probably collapse, and the destruction god would be annihilated forever, unable to be reincarnated. This was the reason for the life goddess's fear. But that small dagger shining with a blue light interrupted the act of the destruction god igniting the god flame. It should be noted that with the divine power of the supreme god, once the god flame is ignited, it cannot be extinguished by external forces. Previously, the destruction god had extinguished the god flame of the emotion god, which was equivalent to saving him. However, this time, it was the emotion god who helped the destruction god extinguish the god flame. His small blue dagger made the perfect move and happened to strike at the moment just before the god flame was ignited. Within this one strike, it condensed the massive divine power of the emotion god, as well as his power of emotion. As soon as the strike was made, the fusion technique between him and the butterfly god ended, and the butterfly god reappeared in front of him. As for the knife lodged in the destruction god's head, it would be a fatal blow for humans, but for divine beings, it was nothing at all. At this moment, the life goddess had already arrived by the side of the destruction god, supporting his body and stabilizing him, while enveloping him in her own life force. In the previous battle, the destruction god had expended a great deal of energy. Even if he wanted to ignite the divine flame again, the life goddess had the ability to control him now. The battle had finally come to an end, with Tang San's side emerging victorious, and drawing a close to this chapter, Xiao Wu, the destruction god, the phoenix god, had all arrived by the side of the emotion god's couple and the food god. The pride god and the sloth god, who was standing in front of them, looked so feeble now. The food god went to receive the nine-colored goddess who had turned back into her human form. The nine-colored goddess's face was as pale as paper, her whole body trembling, and she had to rely on the food god's support to barely stand. If the fundamental factor in achieving victory was Tang San's Asura god strength, then the key to victory lay in this nine-colored goddess. It was the nine-colored goddess Ninjong who, with her powerful divine power, helped Tang San withstand the destructive power of the god of destruction, which allowed Tang San to accumulate power using the sausages provided by the food god and launch the final Asura blood sword attack, ultimately leading to victory. The strongest ability of the nine treasure glazed tile pagoda pagoda, the 9 treasure godly light shield, could normally protect a god from any attack once. However, it consumes 1/10 of the 9-colored goddess's own divine power, which cannot be quickly recovered. It takes at least a month of practice to restore this power, and just now, the 9-colored goddess almost consumed 90% of her divine power to barely withstand the destruction caused by the god of destruction. For her, it will take at least 10 years to recover the divine power that she had lost. Of course, all of this was worth it. Tang San led his team to finally achieve ultimate victory. From afar, the gods who witnessed the battle were in complete shock, unable to believe that everything they saw before them was real. All of this is simply too surreal. To think that Tang San led 2 level 1 gods and 6 level 2 gods to defeat the god of destruction, who was leading a team of 8 level 1 gods. It's completely unimaginable. But he did it, and it's clear that from the very beginning, Tang San had calculated every step of the battle process. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.